Well, by the way, we're rolling as we're listening to American Werewolf in London. We're going to have, we might have to use that in there somewhere. Wow. Okay, keep an eye on there.
How do I look?
You awake?
It looks great.
Sometimes just getting out of bed is a hassle.
Just make sure you're in the frame enough, okay?
Lethargic.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, maybe you hit the snooze alarm a few times.
Fuck yeah, baby.
Well, all the audio that you just heard was the werewolf transformation in American Werewolf in London. So I hope you enjoyed that. It will be in this episode. And hopefully somewhere. So,
ladies and gentlemen, the title of today's episode is Beware Wolves in Sheep's Clothing.
Title awesome.
Beware Wolves. Remember that.
Werewolves. The Title King, my partner Julian, or the Werewolf Tyson.
Yes, and I have transformed into something else. A nightmare. Freddy shirt, okay? Respect to Freddy. So,
he's the most fashionable horror guy I've ever known.
So, the first thing I would like to bring up is he may seem like Jacob, but he's really Reverend Lowe. So anybody that's not been under a rock for the last 10 years at least understands that there was a little trilogy for movies called the Twilight Saga, which, you know, kind of starred the current Batman that we have, Robert Pattinson. You know, made billions and billions of dollars, this little trilogy.
Yeah, the film suffers from probably the speckly glitter werewolves and stuff like that.
Yes. But there was also a movie that came out starring Corey Haim and Gary Busey in 1985 called Silver Bullet.
Stephen King. Phenomenal. The little boy in the wheelchair.
Yes.
Oh, good stuff.
Such a good movie. So, a wolf in sheep's clothing is an idiom of biblical origin used to describe those playing a role contrary to their real character with whom contact can be dangerous. Okay? So, these are people who they may come off and give the kind of behaviors of being one thing, like a good guy, but they're really deep down, they're really bad people. These are the people that you have to watch out for. Like they play the sheep, but they're really the wolves.
Yeah, that werewolf persona, the full moon and all the legend stuff that's based on it, it's really quite legitimate when you really think about it.
Are you a werewolf guy?
I'm kind of a werewolf guy, but I like the legend a real lot too.
Okay.
Because they say a lot of times, a lot of people who have some sicknesses, and back in the day, they didn't know what they really were all about. That when like today, as you know, the full moon does affect people in general, right? So back in the day, when somebody was sick and they attacked somebody during the full moon, maybe they had a little. He's sniffing the flesh, but it makes a lot of sense because the full moon, when it happened, actually made them a little more crazier. Okay. And these guys probably weren't shaved; they probably looked grubby, long beards. And I kind of think the werewolf persona actually started as a legitimate thing that affected humans, but I don't know if they. Oh, that's awesome! But I don't really know if they were necessarily a real werewolf per se. But I do love the potential of how history might be connected to sick people.
Dude, that's very cool. That is a very cool thing to bring up. I like that. So, going into the second thing, lichens and vampires always hang together. And by vampires, I mean bloodsuckers. And by bloodsuckers, I mean people who will drain you for every drop of what you have.
Yeah, in real life, there's bloodsuckers everywhere. And in fiction, there's real bloodsuckers. And it's amazing how, at times, Dracula is a wolf. You know, he's not necessarily a werewolf, but he is the wolf, and then he becomes the bat and the whole 9 yards. So there's a really good connection between the bloodsuckers and Dracula. Now, Dracula as a bloodsucker, not a bloodsucker true to taste, but like a human person that's a bloodsucker, he could be a lawyer or somebody fancy and snazzy, and he's a scumbag bloodsucker also, where the werewolf is definitely more of the mean persona of the anger from within.
Yeah, and you got to remember that even like the wolf in sheep's clothing, you know, I'm gonna be the nice guy, then I'm gonna switch over and turn to the bad guy, almost in a Jekyll and Hyde sense. They can also be bloodsuckers too. They can also be narcissistic, you know, pieces of shit who want to just take everything from you. Like sometimes these inherent traits like just go together.
They sure do. And history makes bigger stories out of it, as we talked about, but it's actually realistic. It's not as fictional as it seems. I mean, Hollywood and fictional writers have made more fiction out of it, but a lot of what we're talking about is based on reality.
Now here's
the fancy sweet talker in the old days, 1700s, he was a bloodsucker.
Yes.
He didn't rip out hearts and necks, but he was a fucking bloodsucker.
Yeah, even if you think about like in today's time where the guy who kind of do the sweetheart romance of the elder lady and then, you know, take her for everything she's got, or you know, like the girl who will like date the old man who like can't even get around, looking like Stanley, you know, God rest, you know, rest in peace Stanley, but will take this dude for everything that he has, like this out there today.
Yeah, well, yeah, no doubt about it. It never goes away. And some of these bloodsuckers and werewolves are females. Yeah, they're not just males, man.
Now, there's a lot more vampire movies than werewolf movies, but there's a lot of great werewolf movies. Like some of them comedy, like, you know, like the Michael J. Fox ones, you know, like Teen Wolf. So the third thing I would like to bring up is full moons aren't the only reason that they transform. Okay, so these wolves in sheep clothing are opportunists. They will turn on you on the drop of the dime anytime it benefits them. They're narcissistic. Like, so when you start to encounter and you're aware that you're around one of these wolves in sheep's clothing and like they can come in any form, they're just waiting for the opportune time to like get you. There's
yeah, you see it in Mr. Robot, Wolves on Wall Street. You see it, man.
In one of my jobs, there's a woman who's playing on people's sympathies. You know, she's telling lies, saying, "Oh, I need this, I need that." People are giving her money. There's nothing wrong with this woman. She's not in dire straits. And what she do, it's a confidence game, you know, where like she gets in with you, she makes you feel good, and now all of a sudden you're doing her little favors. You're giving her money, you're doing things from her.
Little hoodoo voodoo.
She's a straight hustler. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't take a full moon. They will turn on you at any time. So like when you know that these people are in your lives, don't wait for something to happen. They're just waiting for you to let down your guard enough, and then they're going to take everything that they can from you. I promise you.
And be careful, because he's right. And if you actually check back to some of our other episodes, which are our horror-based episodes, there's a lot of opportunity for you to learn, because we bring out a lot of things that are happening. So we mix fiction, and we give you our little cure-alls and whatnot, and the weigh-in is here for you, because if you don't listen to weigh-in, you're going to get bitten.
You're going to be on the way out. So fun fact, the werewolf, The Werewolf, which was a 1913 silent film, is considered the first werewolf film ever. It was directed by Henry McKay, and it was based on the short story The Werewolves, which was published in 1898.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, the fourth fact that I would like to break down is they'll huff and puff and blow your house down.
Oh, that's interesting you brought that up. You know where that comes from, don't you?
The Three Little Pigs.
Isn't it from like, yeah, it's by the Grimm's brothers.
Yes.
Who are evil dudes, man.
So, fun fact, the Three Little Pigs had names: Brownie, Blackie, and Whitey. and they had their own characteristics.
Little racist connotation there?
Maybe.
What do you think?
Maybe. So Brownie was dirty and lazy.
Okay.
Whitey was clever but greedy and selfish.
Yeah.
And Blackie was the nice pig. That
racist shit has never gone away, has it?
You can look that up. So, gaslighting.
How come werewolves don't drink Henny?
Werewolves can drink Henny. They can
do anything they want.
Werewolves can do anything they want. So, gaslighting, which is a form of psychological manipulation in which a person or group covertly sows seeds of doubt in a targeted person or individual, making them question their own memory, perception, judgment, often invoking in them cognitive dissonance and other changes such as low self-esteem and codependence.
Jeez.
So like these wolves and sheep.
So you're talking Nietzsche and some of the theories he had and all those
Yeah.
different and Freud and everything else?
Yeah. So they're trying to undermine who you are, break you down so like they can take from you. And like they want to break you down and they want to take things from you, but you got to be resilient. So the last thing I want to bring up is the silver bullet. The best cure, the true silver bullet to stopping these wolves in sheep's clothing is to spot them before they come into your life. And some way to spot these people is if someone's extra nice, if they're a little bit too gracious, you know, if they're a little bit too much of a yes man, you'll start to understand that they're wolf in sheep's clothing. These are people who are trying to like inveigle their way into your lives, and they have bad intentions. Not all the time, but sometimes.
And you cut that out when you can, folks. We've talked about it in previous episodes.
And before we wrap this episode up, I would like to give one last fun fact. The 1985 movie Silver Bullet is loosely based on a Stephen King book called The Cycle of the Werewolf.
Yep.
Where werewolves, and I also want to bring up the fact, werewolves' vulnerability to silver dates back to 1776 in the folklore of the Beast of Gévaudan.
Yeah, werewolves come out of there's a lot of French werewolf stuff. You got in Germany, you got the Frankenstein. In France, you've got the werewolf. In England, you've got the early development of the slashers with Jack the Ripper and stuff. Every country has their own favorite monster, so to speak. It's a neat story. And, and what do you think the silver bullet's really all about? Because it has to be melted and made. It's pure.
It's the universal cure.
Yeah, and it's
like
pure.
Like the weigh-in, pure and the universal cure. Woo! Like, comment, subscribe, or I'll come and bite your ass. Ruff, ruff, ruff. Woo!
Great episode, brother.
Like the medical office.
Face is changing.
Dude, that.
On our honeymoon, we were in California. You know, in the bookstore where the guy goes in the bookstore to get information on the werewolves?
Yeah.
I walk in this bookstore because I was in downtown Hollywood. I go, this fucking place looks familiar. He goes, does it? I said, yeah. What do you mean? Why are you smiling for? He goes, he goes, the Holly. I said, the Holly! Yeah, they shot it here. Remember his hand starts changing? I think it's...
See, this is almost comical. That one in the howling is fucking freaky as shit.
The whole 9 yards. I mean, those guys that were making all those films back then, they must have all hung together, I'm guessing, you know?
They probably definitely hung together. and think about this. A mama's boy is also someone who respects a woman's sexuality, okay? But he also, if you're having premarital sex, he'll stab you through the fucking heart.
Well, not only that, he'll stab you through the neck like Kevin Bacon got it with the arrow at the end of that movie. Remember that scene there?
Such a good scene.
And another thing too is like, you know, if there's a flashback sequence in one of those Jason films,
Yes.
let's say before he's crazy and he's with a young woman, I mean, you can almost imagine if his mother had a bigger role, she could have been the one that was like just as manipulative as he was. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna kill that girl because she's taking advantage of my crazy son. You know?
Absolutely. And think about the fact that a mama's boy is someone who knows how hard a mama's job is.
No doubt about it.
And especially if it means getting revenge for their son.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man. You know, it really is true.